Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western Practical Astrologer. Okay, so today we're going to be exploring the signs on your IC and your MC. So looking to the Imam Coli and also your midheaven. Now, before we do dive in, if you benefit from your placement today, from this information today, then please be sure to like the video and subscribe for more if you haven't already. And as well, if you would like to book a reading with me, then you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. And you can also check out more information all about astrology over at my podcast, the Cosmic Check-In Podcast. Plus, if you are interested in learning how to read your birth chart simply, then you can always pick up a copy of the astrology cheat sheets. They are a bestseller. Right. So over at the Cosmic Check-In Podcast, there are episodes all about the houses. I have dedicated an episode to each of the houses. So if you go to episodes 22 through to 33, you'll be able to locate those just fine. So that's if you just want more in-depth information all about the houses. Right, let's then think about the 4th house and the 10th house. Now, when it comes to exploring the 4th house and the 10th house, well, the IC can be located within the 4th house, just depending on the system you use. It can also often start the 4th house, again, depending on the system. But what I will say is that some systems, house systems, in some house systems, you can locate the IC in, it could be the 5th, it could be even the 3rd. So you want to also just think about your own chart, but still read for your signs based on the 4th and 10th houses, plus the IC and the MC. But what is the 4th house all about? So the 4th house is sort of like the bottom part of your chart, if you notice the wheel. The 4th house is another angular house, right? 1st house and 7th house angular houses. We talked about those houses in their own separate video. So that was looking at the 1st and 7th houses through this lens of you, so your temperament versus your relationships, your relationship identity. But you see, the 4th house and the 10th house are also angular houses. All 4 of them are. But the 4th house then says, this is your home. This is your safe space, your family, your upbringing. This is you whenever you are within the comforts of your own home. It's about also your emotional security, your emotional needs. So thinking about your very approach to emotional security. And then with the 4th house as well, it's so much about your private identity. So what parts of yourself do you keep private? And naturally, these parts of the self may come out more so when you're more comfortable with people, right? But then the 10th house, and again, think about this in terms of the MC as well. So with the 4th house, think of it in terms of the IC, and then with the 10th house, think of it in terms of the MC. And also just to mention too quickly that the MC, again, depends on the housing system you use. The MC could be located in like the 11th, or I've seen it located in the 12th in some charts. But anyway, the 10th house is about your public identity, your career, your accomplishments, how you establish yourself. This is more so about the kind of individual you're growing into, right? The kind of individual you're becoming, if you will. It's also your approach to professional security. So see here, private versus public identity, emotional versus professional security between the 4th and the 10th houses. But I'm just going to explain a few more things here, right? Because the way we are going to really conduct this video specifically today is we're going to explore your private self versus your public self. And I just have some information then to share about this. Right. A person's private self refers to the perception of their inner feelings and thoughts. It is the individual and the individual alone that knows of this inner conversation. There is a great deal of self-reflection that occurs when we turn inward towards our fears, our fantasies, our desires, and our motivations, our motives. The private self now is also comprised of our personal experiences. Noticing our inner state can lead to greater self-awareness. Opening up and sharing how we feel can also create stronger bonds within our relationships. Whilst no one can quite understand our inner world like us, things like empathy and our social skills can help others see things from our perspective, and hey, vice versa. What we share privately may not be what we wish to share publicly. And perhaps the relationship you have with yourself is a rather private and personal matter. So we want to think about these themes when we consider the fourth house, okay? The Amon Coli, shown as the IC in your chart, indicates your private self. But then opposite, right? The IC and the MC are always opposite each other. The opposite side of this is the midheaven, shown as the MC in your chart, indicating how you choose to present yourself to the public. I suppose it's much more intentional. It's much more conscious, I would suggest. It shows how you perceive yourself based on other people's perceptions as well. Remember that. And it's also connected to the parts of yourself that you want, right? You want others to see these parts of you. The parts you want to be recognized for, the most visible aspects. Often our public self is very different to our private self. However, with social media being what it is today, many people are bringing their private self, right, their private matters to the public space. Many people are making a name for themselves online. It's very interesting to think about there. Becoming familiar, however, with these angular points can help you become aware of both your inner, okay, so IC, and your outer worlds, MC, whilst also considering how they might clash, plus how they might connect. So how they connect, but equally how they clash. So on that note, we are going to get into your IC and MC signs. Thank you so much for watching. And if you are enjoying this video so far, again, please be sure to like the video, subscribe for more. Let's get into your signs. First up, we have Aries on the IC and Libra on the MC. So when we think about whole sign, just looking at this through the lens of whole sign, it could very well be that you have a Capricorn rising, okay? Again, just look more into it yourself. The MC, the IC could be in different places. Just look at your own chart and see how it unfolds. Okay, so with Aries on the IC, your private self is quite childlike. It's energetic. You have a lot of passion. At your core, you're independent. You're a leader. Perhaps you had to be a leader, so to speak, right? You had to be independent from a young age. So you'll quickly share your inner thoughts, feelings, and your personal experiences, but you might not show outwardly any anger or competitiveness, right? There could be parts of the self here that are hidden, right? Private parts of the self, especially from this place of inner security and protection. Still, your inner, right? So your inner conversation can be loud, right? Your inner self can be so loud at your core, you may feel loud. It's as if your emotions are very strong And you typically also follow your strong gut instincts. I'm even thinking to myself, is it that you had to keep yourself safe from danger growing up? Maybe from certain family members and so on. I think as well, fighting and arguments within the home amongst the family. But you may prefer to keep matters related to things like aggression or violence, things like that. You may prefer to keep them private. Now, with Libra on the MC, your public self is actually very cooperative. Your public self wants everybody to get along. And your public self is also quite attractive, conscious, conscious of others, but equally conscious of yourself, right? Mindful of how you present yourself, how you appear, how you look. The public may perceive you as artistic, beautiful, relationship orientated, and you may want to be recognized for your social skills, for your good taste, perhaps for both your beauty and your brains. Maybe you make a name for yourself through the likes of fashion, music, hey, there's beauty, teamwork, or possibly mediating, being a bit of a mediator, being quite cooperative within social situations. However, the public does not really see the part of you that can be selfish. They don't really see your frustration. So they're not really seeing your Aries IC. They're more seeing this Libra part of you, right? This part of you that wants to get along or is more tactful and diplomatic, but they may not see how angry you can get or possibly competitive you can be. They may not also see or fully get maybe what you experienced growing up in terms of aggression and having to protect, having to be maybe very independent from a young age, or having to maybe look after your loved ones, your family, be a bit of a protector for them, a bit of a guardian for them maybe as well. Okay, so now we're going to move on to, let's see here, Taurus on the IC and then Scorpio on the MC. Now, when using the whole sign system here especially, it could be that you have this Aquarius rising, right? So Aquarius is on the rising. However, you also just want to consider your personal chart. But I still recommend reading for the 4th and 10th houses. So if you've got Taurus on the IC, your private self is very stable. It's very grounded. And at your core, you're quite central. You're talented. You're gifted. You'll be perhaps quite slow, though, to share your inner thoughts and feelings and also your personal experiences. It can just take you a while to really open up to other people about your private life, about how you're really feeling. And you might not show your discomfort or any hedonistic tendencies. And so your inner world can be solid, and you'll follow what is valuable. Maybe for you, it is important to live a stable, steady life. Security means everything to you. It's not to say that you do experience everything as super stable and steady all the time. Perhaps this is also where we want to consider where Venus is in the chart, right? We do want to think about the very ruling planets of the IC and the MC as we explore your personal chart, right? So there's more to this. I get that. But ultimately here, what we see is you might prefer to keep matters related to your finances and your security quite private. Maybe you're not really the types of people to openly discuss money or finances or how much money you make, or you might not discuss openly any worries or fears you have about money, because maybe there's a part of you that feels like you need to keep it together, especially if it is that you go through a challenging time where things are quite shaky. And then I'm also thinking to myself, with Uranus transiting Taurus right now, and it has been so since about 2018 all the way up until about 2025, 2026. Yeah, Uranus transiting Taurus there. For those of you who have Taurus IC, maybe we have seen the shakeups. But hey, this could also manifest as you moving house suddenly. And because of those unexpected changes, things actually do work out, right? So there is that. But whenever we explore your public self, this is an interesting one because Scorpio is up there. Your public self is very passionate. It's very deep. It's very profound. You love to investigate. You can be very probing as well. The public perceive you as very compelling, as this deep introspective person, as someone who comes with the receipts, right? You want perhaps to be recognized for your research, for your investigations, for your insights, for your ability to dig deeper into things and not just look at the superficial. You might even make a name for yourself when it comes to the likes of, well, could be sexuality, could be horror, right? Horror, magic, healing, alchemy. Here we go again with investigation. But the public doesn't see the part of you that can be possessive. They don't see your security concerns, right? They may not see what kinds of moves you're really making there when it comes to your career, when it comes to your reputation. Maybe you're very strategic there, right? You may work sort of behind the scenes in a way to see how you can make things work to benefit yourself, career-wise, professional-wise. But what I'm also going to say about this is, hey, I think whilst it is that you can equally experience these harsh renewals when it comes to your professional life, you also are very disciplined, determined. This is about self-mastery within your chosen field, within your chosen profession. And you may want to dominate, so to speak. And I'm trying not to mean that in a negative way. I just mean in a way where you feel powerful. You feel like, yes, I'm in control here. I know what I'm doing. I'm following my passion. And because of that, I am successful. Even just using your renewals, your transformations as a way to learning from them and being so massively resilient. Okay, let's now move on to Gemini on the IC and Sagittarius on the MC. Now with this one, it could be that you've got a Pisces rising in your chart, but it's also important to explore your personal chart, see where the MC and IC are located, but still read for the 4th and 10th houses. So with Gemini on the IC here, your private self is amusing and chatty. Maybe you are actually a very engaging, inquisitive person. At your core, you're curious, you're bright, you're sharp, you're witty, and you're also quite entertaining. Maybe you'll communicate your inner thoughts and feelings and your personal experiences, right? This is about communicating these things. But you might not show your irritations or any nervousness. Maybe, there was a lot of chitter chatter, a lot of conversation, and maybe gossip within your home. And perhaps you learned early on in some way, shape, or form what to keep to yourself, what to keep private, rather than just sort of communicating any thought that came up or any feeling that came up. You might even have this feeling like do you know what? If I just talk this through with myself, it's going to be fine. But still, you might not show any irritation. And your inner world, it can be scattered. It can be restless. And you typically follow whatever comes to mind, right? So it could even be that on some sort of subconscious level, when it comes to projects and starting things and being curious and maybe gathering research and data and everything, you'll just jump from one thing to the next. And maybe, hey, this could also be where you have your own personal library at home, or education is important to you at home, reading a lot, watching loads of movies, just being in the know. Yeah, educating yourself. You may also, however, prefer to keep matters related to gossip and education private. So what I'm trying to get at here is you may not be super quick to kind of go, oh, well, these are my credentials and this is, the score I had or the grade I got and things like that. And you may also be somewhat mindful of the whole gossiping stuff. Maybe because it may be that you learned from an early age that whenever you did share and stuff like that, it was passed around, it was shared with certain family members or neighbors. And things like that could have happened. Now, on the other hand, your public self is explorative, it's expansive, it's knowledge seeking, it wants more. And I actually think, especially with time, with age, you grow to want to share more of yourself. The public actually perceive you as very open and free and jovial. You may want to be recognized for your travels, for your beliefs, for your worldviews. Hey, you may actually want to be recognized for your education, funnily enough here. And especially, higher education, getting that degree, getting that diploma, getting your master's. And maybe as well, you prefer to make a name for yourself through the likes of fame and fortune and glory, or through adventure, philosophy, through promotion, or through broadcasting. Now, the public, however, doesn't see the part of you that has many moods, many faces. They may not see just how irritable you can be, especially maybe to feedback or criticism you receive from the public or from managers or bosses and things. Because what you might do is you can take that information and just ruminate, overthink, or worry. Though what I'm also going to say here is the public might not see the information that you keep private, the details that you may or may not intentionally keep out. And hey, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Maybe it's sort of like, well, they don't need to know this detail. But I'm also going to say here, it could be at times where you exaggerate the truth a little bit. And hey, that's not necessarily a bad thing either. We kind of think here of you exaggerating the truth because you think, well, this is going to be a bigger, it's going to have a bigger, larger impact on other people. It may be something as simple as like inspiring other people with a message with your words. And so, yeah, you exaggerate the truth because you really want to, rile people up or make them believe in something. Okay, let's now move on and explore Cancer on the IC and Capricorn on the MC. And it could very well be here that you've got an Aries rising, but even if this isn't the case, still read for the IC and the MC. And if you do have an Aries rising, it's still going to be about the 4th and the 10th houses, right? Okay, so with Cancer on the IC here, your private self is nurturing and protective. At your core, you're very sentimental. I mean, you love making memories with family. You may love family time, your family life. Now, of course, this also does depend on where the moon is within the chart. Some people are more family oriented, whilst others are not with this placement. Yes, make sure you're also locating the very rulers of the IC and the MC. Still, there could be this nostalgia At your core, you're nostalgic, you're sentimental, you're sensitive, very sensitive. And so, because you can be quite sensitive, perhaps you can at times be vague when sharing your inner thoughts, feelings, and personal experiences, right? And you prefer not to show any weakness or insecurity. See, this is about protection, being able to protect yourself. And hey, this is also about respecting your boundaries, respecting your emotional space, your emotional world, your private world. You don't have to share every little detail about your private life. And so, this is what we notice here. And also, your inner world can be very repetitive. So you may prefer things that are familiar to you. I think to myself that you'll go back to the same sort of habit, this emotional habit, because it brings you comfort. It's something that makes you feel secure. And you may also love to create certain family traditions, for example, right? And even if you don't have a family, it's still about those traditions that you create within the home. And, it could also be that you're quite nurturing towards your pets if you have any pets here. Plus, your inner world is very intuitive. And so you may prefer to follow your intuition. What I'm thinking actually is that you may prefer to do things like tarot readings or practice certain spiritual practices at home, things like that. Maybe you love even to reflect a lot and to cooking, baking. Also, you may prefer to keep matters related to family and home private. It's not to say that you don't share anything about perhaps family stuff, but there could be just certain home things, family things that you do. You prefer, no, it's not for the public. I'm going to keep this to myself. But your public self is disciplined. It's successful. It's perhaps status seeking. Your public self is determined. It's very ambitious, and the public tend to perceive you as ambitious and determined, right? You may also want to be recognized for your purpose, for your accomplishments, for the things that you put so much of your time and energy into. Maybe you make a name for yourself through purpose, right? Through your purpose, through your business, through certain traditions or planning or being an authority in some way, shape, or form, right? Being a bit of a manager or a boss or a leader, CEO, all these kinds of things. And yeah, success may mean a great deal to you, really. And by this, I just mean you following a path where you feel established, you feel accomplished. However, the public doesn't see the part of you that can be sullen. They don't see your defenses. They don't see how emotional you can be. You can become quite emotionally charged at times. And maybe this, in a way, and I'm just following this with my intuition, I think, just going with that. Maybe in a way, this is where you got to be mindful about what you're actually sharing with the public in a large way, especially if it is that you know that you can become quite emotionally riled up by things or upset about things, kind of thinking about the feedback you receive from the public and how all that stuff can really get to you or bother you. Maybe also this is where we notice greater sort of control and knowing what to share, knowing what to keep private. Of course, Capricorn is all about sort of reputation and your public image, and it's there on the MC. And then Cancer is more so about privacy and our emotional needs, our emotional security. Okay, so let's now move on and let's explore Leo on the IC with Aquarius on the MC. Could be that you have a Taurus rising, but this, of course, is not always the case. Still, I mean, with the Taurus rising, we can read this in terms of the 4th and 10th houses, right? Okay. With Leo on the IC, your private self is lively, it's dramatic, it's playful, it's entertaining. My goodness, you know how to have a good time on your own. Right? At your core, you're an individual. You're childlike. You're creative. My goodness, you just may love spending time on your own. spending time at home, being creative, being artistic, entertaining yourself, play and fun and pleasure. Just at your core, you may be this naturally childlike and enthusiastic person. You're a big kid at heart. This is what we see when it comes to you. And then I'm also thinking, if it is, and this is if you do have children, you're going to make their childhood just so playful and full of fun and making memories when it comes to those things, right? Getting them into arts and crafts, and also, we can look at this as you being a little bit sassy, a little bit feisty at home with your family, those closest to you. It all just sort of comes out. And you'll express your inner thoughts, feelings, and personal experiences, provided you feel confident, provided you feel safe with the people around you. It's like when you feel protected, when you feel safe, it just all comes out. And you won't show vanity. You're not going to show vanity or your heartache. Yes, there can be times whenever you are perhaps going through something, you could be hurting. Maybe you need to feel like there is that honesty, that loyalty, right, with connections before you truly show these parts of yourself. Maybe there is a part of you that doesn't want to get hurt, right? Your inner sort of conversation, your inner world can be enthusiastic, like I'm trying to say here, and you do typically follow your heart. You may also prefer to keep matters related to romance, love, your ego private. Okay, so there's just certain things, when it comes to love and romance and dating and things like that, even when it comes to matters related to your children, there are certain things that you just go, no, this is private, I'm not going to share. But you see, your public self is inventive, it's idealistic, it's future oriented. The public might perceive you as outgoing, as eccentric, as a little bit unusual, right? You have these unique quirks that can take people by surprise, right? You can catch them off guard. You can be very unpredictable. But this is a part of your charm. This is a part of what makes you quite unique. You'll stand out. My goodness, you're the types of people who stand out without even meaning to. You want to be recognized perhaps in some way, shape, or form for your quirks, for your sincerity, for how friendly you can be. And maybe you make a name for yourself through the likes of technology, community, charity, friendship, causes, astrology, my goodness, being innovative, inventive. However, the public doesn't see the part of you that can be uncaring, the part of you that may actually really let things get to you, right? It's like, oh, that's really painful to my ego. I mean, why would that person say that? Why would that person comment that thing? Right? So yeah, whenever your ego is bruised, it's like you could just show it in front of the public. Inwardly, there could be some distress and discomfort. And also, the public may not see your moments or times when you can present these attitudes, maybe privately, attitudes where it's like, see me, validate me, notice me. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's now move on. And we are going to look at Virgo on the IC and then Pisces on the MC. So with this combination, yes, it could be that you've got a Gemini rising, but naturally just consider your own chart. And you could also read it in terms of Virgo in the 4th house and then Pisces in the 10th house. Right. So with Virgo on the IC, your private self is helpful, helpful and dedicated. You're the types of people, funnily enough, especially with Gemini on the rising, you're the types of people who others can actually rely on you to an extent, because you can be so caring and thoughtful and helpful and considerate. At your core, you're really efficient. You can be pretty organized. You're hygienic. You're modest. And you'll be quite shrewd when sharing your inner thoughts, feelings, and personal experiences. I'm even kind of thinking to myself that you can take part in a little bit of harmless self deprecation, or where you sort of shrug things off as if to say, oh, that's not a big deal, right? Maybe there is a small part of you that actually doesn't really like the spotlight, being on you, which is interesting to think about, especially if you do have a Gemini rising. Thinking about whole sign here, and Leo is on the third house cusp. When we think about communication and how you can really be expressive and just openly share what you think with Leo on the third. But still, this Virgo IC, we'll go back to the Virgo IC just in general. You may not have a Gemini rising, but still, with Virgo on the IC, you could be quite analytical, and you may just think through your inner thoughts and feelings, and you can laugh certain things off with some humor. But you see, you might not show your mental stresses or your irritations. You might not really truly show what you're going through mentally, especially if it is that there are some concerns there. Your inner world can be detailed, and you'll follow what makes practical sense, right? So if there is something that comes up, right, and it's maybe a feeling, a thought, a concern of yours, you're like, right, okay, what can I do? What can I do practically? How can I fix this, right? And also, you may prefer to keep matters related to your health or your work private. You may not be super, open about these kinds of areas. And I'm especially thinking about just with anybody. I do think, and this is what I'm trying to get at with the IC, I think when it comes to people you are genuinely comfortable around, you feel safe around, close loved ones, sure, yes, these parts could very well come out, right? But you see, your public self is compassionate. It's imaginative. Your public self can be quite spiritual, changeable, fluid, willing just to try new things when you need to, open to new opportunities. The public may perceive you as being quite a spiritual person. They may perceive you as being quite flexible and adaptable. And you may also want to be recognized for your intuition, for your creativity, for your ability to sort of, in a way, reinvent yourself, to play different roles, to wear different hats. Maybe you make a name for yourself through the likes of photography, film, fantasy, healing, tarot, my goodness. However, the public doesn't see the part of you that can be nitpicky, the part of you that can be really critical of yourself. You may even sort of be known publicly as someone who is very kind and caring and feeling, and you want to make the world a better place, and you're there for people who are suffering and sad and things like that. Quite a charitable, giving, generous person. But when it comes to your own personal struggles, right? When it comes to your own worry, your own stresses, you may overthink yourself into oblivion. And you may also kind of look at it as, I don't need to ask for help. I don't need to add extra pressure onto other people's plates, extra things, extra stress. I can manage this myself. But then I also think to myself, if this is the case, can you also get swept up a little bit in chaos? And hopefully then in this regard, you have people in your life who you can open up to, who you can rely on a little bit, just like others may rely on your own helpfulness. Okay, let's now move on to Libra on the IC and then Aries on the MC. So what we're doing here is we're switching them around, and with this combination, you could very well have a Libra rising, a Cancer rising, my apologies, a Cancer rising, which is not always the case. And also, I'm going to say here, even with Cancer on the rising, you can read it as Libra in the 4th and then Aries in the 10th. Okay, so Libra on the IC. Your private self is considerate, it's diplomatic, At your core, you're artistic, you're peaceful, you want to negotiate, you want everybody to get along. And I kind of see this as well within your own upbringing, your family, and things like that. You may have grown up in this environment, this living situation where you just wanted everybody to get along. And maybe you played the mediator. You're quite a pleasing person, though, at your core, quite agreeable, and you may make adjustments for others. You'll weigh things out as well before you share your inner thoughts and feelings. And you may also ask about other people's personal experiences. This could be as a way to gain feedback, as a way to gain more information from other people to help you navigate your own inner world. But, with weighing things out, sure, this could be where you are coming from this more balanced, reasonable, you're taking a more balanced and reasonable approach, right? But it could also be where you go back and forth so much, and then you could just sort of rationalize how you're feeling anyway, just over explaining things, for example. But also, you may hide being superficial. You may hide any sort of vanity. Your inner world, though, can be observant, and you'll either follow your head or your heart. But I think a big part of this, though, is trying to address both. And maybe that's also where some of the challenges can arise, because you're like, is this what my heart wants? Is this what my head wants? Am I thinking with my head? Am I feeling with my heart? Which way is it here? That can take some time to really maybe address or refine or change. And you also may prefer to keep matters related to negotiations and business contracts private. Okay. Yes, you may not want to sort of share these kinds of things with just anybody. However, your public self with Aries on the MC is pioneering, it's motivating, it's inspiring, it's passionate, it's driven. My goodness, the public perceive you as very ambitious, as a warrior, as brave, as someone who is willing enough, ready enough to take the leap, right? To try something new. And you may want to be recognized for your courage, for your ability to achieve your goals, or just to go after your goals, It's like you could be following a certain path for a while, and then you just decide, no, actually, I want to try this thing. I want to go for it. And then people are so inspired by that. They're inspired because you took the leap. You started it. And perhaps you also make a name for yourself through business, fighting or sports or racing, competing, right? Competitive sports, for example, or through leadership, thinking about leadership positions. I'm really thinking here even about entrepreneurship, enterprise, starting your own business here. However, the public doesn't see the part of you that can at times be indifferent. They don't see even how indecisive you can be, how on the fence at times you can be. And that's an interesting thing to consider, right? Maybe a part of it is that whilst it can appear to the public like, whoa, Aries here on the midheaven just made a decision and just went for it. They may not see just a lot of the inner stuff, right? A lot of the private stuff that you did to arrive to that conclusion. You don't just sort of instantly do it. There's a lot of backstory to it, right? Okay, moving on to Scorpio on the IC and Taurus on the MC. So with this combination, you could very well have a Leo rising, okay? Now, this isn't always going to be the case. Still, when we think about whole sign and you do have a Leo rising, it's still going to be Scorpio on the 4th and then Taurus on the midheaven. So with Scorpio on the IC, your private self is perceptive and intense. You're a very driven individual. At your core, you are determined, very determined. You will fight tooth and nail to achieve your goals. You're also this investigator, perhaps this researcher within your home, and you may back up all of your information, like with research, with resources. You're really going to investigate within your home. And You'll not share your inner thoughts and feelings with people you don't trust. With people you do not trust, sharing your personal experiences, you see, requires intimacy. Kinds of people who just share everything about their lives, you're like, why would you do that? No, very questionable perhaps to you. And you may also think to yourself, you don't know me like that, so why would I share that with you? Again, this is where intimacy, this is where trust need to be built, need to be established over time. People within your inner circle, yes, they're going to know more about your vulnerabilities, know more about your feelings. And also, you're not going to share your vulnerabilities with anybody. You kind of think here about how, yes, our vulnerabilities can be used against us. They can be. And maybe you know that all too well. Maybe because you were raised in an environment where your vulnerabilities were used against you, right? And your inner world can be regenerative. It can transform greatly. And you'll follow your strong instincts. My goodness, your instincts can be very mighty, very loud. You may also prefer to keep matters related to trauma and loss private. You're not just going to share how you feel there about those things with anyone. Now, as for your public self is artistic, it's creative, it's sensual, it's earthy, it's also productive and reliable. I mean, maybe the public perceive you as being a very dedicated, reliable person, someone, that others can depend on. Indeed, you want to be recognized as well for your talents, your gifts, your values, any products you sell, perhaps any products you offer. Maybe you also make a name for yourself through the likes of sales, style, beauty, fashion, art, music, real estate, food. However, the public doesn't see the part of you that can be self-destructive, right? They don't see your emotional battles, your emotional scars, what you really, really struggle with, especially whenever you are alone. Moving on to Gemini, well, Sagittarius on the IC, and then Gemini on the MC. And you could very well have a Virgo rising. This may not always be the case, of course. And also, even if you do have Virgo on the rising, think about whole sign. Sagittarius will be in the 4th and then Gemini in the 10th. Right. Your private self is jovial and hopeful. At your core, you're philosophical. You're free spirited. You're quite expansive people. And you'll openly share your inner thoughts, feelings, and experiences, provided you're not judged. Maybe this is about creating a safe space for your opinions, for the things that you truly care about, for the things that you want to be open about. And maybe from a very early age, you thought to yourself, I want to be free. I want to get out of here. I want to explore. I want to expand my horizons. Now, at the same time, you might not share your sadness. You may also not share your judgments or what you kind of really think about certain things. So there is that. And your inner world can also be very big and open and just ready to try new things. Plus, you'll follow your future aspirations. Now, at the same time, you may prefer to keep matters related to the likes of religion and politics private. Yes, when it comes to talking about politics and religion, you're like, no, I'd rather not. I'd rather just keep those kinds of subjects and topics for people that I'm really close with, right? Now, as for your public self is informative, it's articulate, it's sharp, it's bright, it's witty, it's engaging. The public may perceive you as very interesting, and you may want to be recognized for your communicative skills. Perhaps you make a name for yourself through the likes of learning, teaching, media, reporting, writing, entertainment, being able to form connections or connecting people together. However, the public does not see the part of you that can be reckless or the side of you that can be argumentative. Okay, so let's now move on to Capricorn on the IC with Cancer on the MC, which, hey, you could very well have a Libra rising here. Not always the case, of course, but even if you do have a Libra rising, we want to think about the whole sign system. You're still going to have Capricorn in the 4th and then Cancer in the 10th. Okay, so with Capricorn on the IC, your private self is reserved. It's structured, it's disciplined, it's orderly. At your core, you're a very responsible person, right? And maybe you had to be. Maybe it's that you were raised in an environment, you were raised in a home where there was a lot of structure. It was about being orderly, responsible, following the rules. And at your core, you're also realistic, and you can come across as sort of mature, sort of wiser beyond your years, right? Plus, you'll be quite cautious when sharing your inner thoughts, feelings, and personal experiences. Just being mindful about, okay, who am I sharing this stuff to? What am I sharing? Maybe there are certain parts where you're like, no, I'm going to keep that part private because they don't need to know that, and that's all fine. Then also, you'll be selective, right? This is what I'm getting at. You'll be selective about what you share, and you also may prefer not to show imperfection or failure. Yes, you might not want other people to know your failures, to know your setbacks, or to know your mistakes. And your inner conversation can be quite stern, and you may also follow the practical route. You will follow the route that's been more so tried and tested. With that being said, this also does depend on where Saturn is located in the chart, right? This is the same kind of thing with all the placements. You want to think about the ruler of the IC and the MC. And I'm also going to say here, whenever you actually do move out of your family home, right, there is this greater desire to want to build something of your own. This is about establishing things within your own right. And that could play out in many different ways. And then I also think a part of this is that as you age, as you grow, you learn, life lessons and experiences, you may come to this point of actually, do you know what? When it comes to my failures, when it comes to the things that I find challenging or difficult throughout my life, the times when I've messed up, my goodness, they've been massive for learning. And that could be really what you come to terms with, essentially, right? And you can use those kinds of lessons as a guiding force within your life. And you may also prefer to keep matters related to your sadness and possibly, as I'm trying to say here, major setbacks private. What I'm sort of getting from this is there are just certain experiences, especially challenging, perhaps quite morbid experiences, really darker experiences that you prefer not to just share with anybody. But I'm also thinking that with people that you trust, you're more willing to sort of open up. Maybe for you, it is about feeling like you're in a safe space, right? That people care about you emotionally, they're there to support you. And this is where the Cancer MC comes in, because your public self is so caring. It's so supportive. You may be the first one within the group to be like, hey, do you know what? Yeah, open up, share what you want to share. We're here to support you. And you can see how those parts of yourself have came about because of your own upbringing, right? We see this, hopefully you see this. And then also the public perceive you as nurturing, as sentimental, someone with a lot of feeling and just, caring, so deeply caring. Even if it is that you are maybe getting into business or there's some sort of accomplishment or achievement you're working toward, you're going to nurture it. And you may also want to be recognized for being hospitable, for being that supportive team player figure within the world. Maybe you make a name for yourself through the likes of homemaking, caregiving, parenting, cooking, being psychic, right? Using your intuition. However, the public doesn't see the part of you that can be stern at times. Yes, the part of you that can be a bit of a disciplinarian when you need to be, or they don't see how unforgiving you can be. It depends on the situation, I think, especially if it is that you've been slighted or hurt by somebody. Yeah, they do not see how stern you can be, where you're like, nope, not dealing with that. Bye, right? But it's these things that I think have came about because of your upbringing, if you see here, right? Because you were able to establish this greater self-control and this responsibility over yourself, where you can very much so set boundaries between you and others. It's just like, no, I'm not going to tolerate this disrespect, for example. Okay, so let's now move on and let's explore Aquarius on the IC and Leo on the MC. All right, so if you've got Aquarius on the IC and Leo on the MC, which by the way, you could very well have a Scorpio rising with this combination, which isn't always going to be the case, but still, when we explore the whole sign system with Scorpio on the rising, you think about how Aquarius is in the 4th, Leo is in the 10th. Right. With Aquarius on the IC, your private self is experimental, it's scientific, it's innovative. This is actually where we notice how you can keep many emotions to yourself. And at your core, you're free thinking. You're so much about freedom, freedom of thought. You also really deeply care about your independence. You need your independence to be nurtured in many ways. And you'll explain your inner thoughts, feelings, and personal experiences quite logically. Quite logically. But you see, you can also detach. You can also sort of be somewhat more detached when explaining how you feel or what's going on with you, right? Plus, you'll not share your future plans or your original ideas. You don't always, you also don't share them. Maybe a part of it is because you want to keep these things private. You want to be mindful in terms of other people taking your ideas, stealing your ideas. You can be really strategic, especially if you've got Scorpio on the rising, right? Very, very strategic people. Plus, your inner world can be quite genius, and you can have these sort of flashes of insight. Plus, you may prefer to keep matters related to, what you really think about humanity private. You may also keep matters related to friendship a bit private, right? Maybe for you, it is important to nurture and care about those friendships. It's not really about sharing all of that information with just anybody. Now, as for your public self is bold, it's confident, it's enthusiastic, it's perhaps in many ways heroic. And the public may perceive you as dignified or as really generous as a leader. You may want to be recognized for your leadership, for your strong will, right? For your strong will, for your courage in many respects, for having a really good heart, a strong heart. Perhaps you also make a name for yourself through the likes of performing, acting, sports, management, creativity. However, the public does not see the part of you that can be aloof. They don't see your erratic and unpredictable side. Lastly, then, we have Pisces on the IC and Virgo on the MC. Right. You could very well have a Sagittarius rising with this combination, but this is not always the case. And even if you do have a Sagittarius rising, think about whole sign, okay? So Pisces would be in the 4th, Virgo in the 10th. With Pisces on the IC, your private self is fluid, it's merging, it's compassionate, it's full of empathy and feeling and depth. At your core, you may be very creative, a bit of a dreamer, very imaginative. You may, love things that are really symbolic, right? You're always looking out for the messages, the signs, symbols, things like that. It can be difficult, though, for you to recall certain inner thoughts, feelings, and personal experiences, especially, whenever these things, whenever they are tied to something really profound and deep for you. But they come out in different ways. They could come out through photography, art, music, media, yeah, these are the kinds of means. I suppose it's just about how you channel, right? How you channel your inner thoughts and feelings. And you can do that so creatively. Poetry, your writing. Also, you're not going to share your paranoia. You're not going to give your secrets away, so to speak, right? There could be some things that you do deliberately keep to yourself because it's like, oh, I'm not going to let them know what I'm afraid of. Maybe a part of that is about trust as well. And your inner world can be at times overwhelming, very emotional, swept up in big, big waves of emotion. And you'll also follow your psychic hunches. Yes, you will follow your psychic hunches, which they can be quite strong. Now, you may also prefer to keep matters related to pity and sympathy private. I kind of think to myself that, yes, you're the kinds of people that do not like other people pitying you or looking at you, feeling sorry for you, stuff like that. But what I will also say is that with people you love, people you trust, right? There's that bond, there's that emotional connection, then you are more willing just to be vulnerable and to let out how you're truly feeling, especially if it is, for example, that you're fearful or you're going through something during a certain stage of your life. Now, as for your public self, with Virgo on the MC, your public self is precise, it's productive. You may get straight to the point. You may be very good at sort of putting things together, and the public may perceive you as being put together, as organized, as like you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about. And you may also want to be perceived or recognized, more so, recognized for your services, for your work, for your efforts, your dedication to service, your dedication to your work. Maybe also you make a name for yourself through things like medicine, exercise, wellness, health, crafts, self-help as well. You want to maybe make things practical for other people, useful for other people. However, the public may not see the part of you that can actually be vague. They don't see how impressionable, how easily influenced you can be. Okay, so this has been the video all about the Imam Coli and the midheaven. So thinking about your private self versus your public self. I do hope you find this video to be helpful. If you did, make sure to give it a like, subscribe for more. Thank you for listening. If you want to book a reading with me, you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. And if you really did find this information to be helpful today, you can always buy me a coffee. And on that note, thank you again. I will talk to you in the next video. Bye.